to the X Lounge. I am Brian, your host, and this is going to be a how-to video. I'm going to talk about one of Mike's other questions, which is how to deal with these push marks. When they're it's part of the molding process. Whenever the two mold sections come apart, there's some pins that come out and push the part out of the mold. Sometimes they're not too awful bad, such as the case on this one. They're just a little bit indented. Not much. This is probably what you're going to see mostly, is this type here. Every now and again you run into some bad ones though, like this one. This one's got a whole hunk hanging off of it there. These are sticking up way proud, and this one is slightly under. And if you'll notice, there is a bit of texture to the floor here. Most of the times that I see pin marks that are going to be a problem is on the interior. There'll generally be 4 of them. Up here it'll interfere with your floor mat. Otherwise, if there's no floor mat, it's interfering with the texture that you've got there. I don't get too excited about these because I will be putting glue down in this whole area, or paint, and then sprinkling on flock, and then dumping off the excess. Flock is a fuzzy looking stuff that looks like carpet, looks like scale carpet. But if you don't have that, or if you don't wish to do that, I do have a solution for duplicating this pattern and possibly other floor carpet patterns. So if these stick proud of the surface, just shave them off. Actually, I should make a little picture of that. Let's say you've got the surface of your plastic and you've got a proud pin mark. What I like to do is come in with the Ejector blade, and shave off as much of that as I can. That way you're not touching this surface or this surface. If you come in and sand this, you're going to end up touching over here and over here, and what you're going to end up with is a dip like that. When you finally get that shaven off, you're going to end up taking more of this meat and more meat here, just as the action of your sanding. So what I like to do, like I said, is shave that off and then sand it, and you won't have as much of a dish there. And you will see that later on when you primer it. You'll be able to see that there's a dip there. So whenever the pin marker is on the inside, we're going to fill that up with putty. If you do it all by itself, if you just cram putty in there, you'll do something like that. And then later on, once it's dry, you'll notice that this top has sunken like a pie coming out of the oven. So what you end up with is that. Maybe it doesn't sink that far, but after you sand that flush, what you end up with is still a little divot there. And what do you got to do? You got to fill that up and sand that again. So what I am going to propose to do So what I do is I put up a little bit of masking tape around the edges, close but not right up to it, and then I go ahead and fill it in. That way whenever it sinks down, it doesn't go below the surface of that. This is, let me see what kind of tape this is real quick. It's called High Stick. It's an automotive masking tape, number 832. I get it at the local surplus store in the automotive paint section. It doesn't leave a mark. Other masking tapes that I use, if you leave it on there or if it sits out in the sun, you peel off the tape and the adhesive has gone hard and it's still stuck to the surface. Alright, for the moment I'm using I don't know, I don't forget what the brand is. It's automotive, it's spot or glazing putty. And I put it in this X Tamiya jar. And whenever it gets kind of dried out like that, I just add a little bit of acetone to it. Stir it up. You can revitalize this stuff even if it's completely dried out. This putty isn't as fine as the Tamiya putty, but for rough work I like it primarily because it's cheap. Cheap and plentiful. Alright, what am I going to use to apply this? Try to get on there thick enough, like if I see the outline of the circle, I know that it's going to dry and shrink past where I need to be sanding from. Okay, so there's that one. I'll let that dry. And with the magic of television, we'll be right back to it immediately. However, in the meantime, I'm also going to cut down these the best I can. I'm going to end up using a Dremel tool, and I'm going to do it off camera because it's probably going to make a mess. If I were to do it right here, I'd mess up my whole little working area. So, I will be back momentarily. Okay, we're back. I ground down that one, and that one. This one, however, is concave. It is down in there. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to fill it with a little bit of Milliput. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a 2-part putty, water soluble. It makes part A. part B. I like to roll a little ball of 1. And actually that's more than what we're going to need, but it's kind of hard to mix, I guess, smaller than that. And then I make a ball of the other. And then I pinch off a little bit here and there to get them to be pretty much the same. And you just squish them together, mix them up, and you've got about, oh, I don't know, you've got hours. What's this say? It says it goes hard in 2 or 3 hours. In my experience, it takes a bit longer than that. I don't really mess with it until the next day. I'm going to rough up the bottom of this. I'm going to put some fairly deep scratches in it so that the putty has something to hold on to. So I'm just going to squish that in there. I don't think I need all of it. Then hopefully this part works. I'm going to scrape that down and hopefully flatten off and remove any that's not necessary. That worked. Okay. So to duplicate that texture, I'm going to use this hunk of chert. So it's got a flint in it. It's got who knows what all this other mess is, but it's got a pretty awesome texture here and there. And one of the ends is very, very small, so I can get into an area and just touch that onto the milliput, and it's not going to be a perfect match, but it's going to be close enough that someone's not going to notice looking in the windshield. And in 24 hours, that'll be ready. In the meantime, I'm going to try to duplicate the texture on these other 3 spots, and I'm going to do that by flooding the plastic with some cement. I'm going to let that sit. That's going to soften up the plastic, and then I'm going to come in and texture up the plastic with this disposable brush that I've cut the bristles real short on. I've used an acid brush in the past. I can't seem to locate it, or any other one that I have. I like them a little bit better. They're stiffer. Same concept. Cut them really short, and they'll have some strength this way. So once that plastic has had a chance to get softened up, I come in here and just dot it. Ooh. Poke it like that, and it will pretty much do that same texture. This is a trick that I learned in the armor modeling world to make cast iron surface. And you just keep doing that and blend it into the texture around it. Tough to see because this is white, but I'm going to primer this tomorrow once this is dry, and we'll be able to see what kind of results that we have from that activity. And so we've returned. It's the next day. Things are dry. Here is the new floor plan. new floor pan of the kit, where we filled in a pin mark that was shallow, and then we cut flush some that were proud. I'm going to sneeze. And then we textured it using a method where you soften up the plastic with cement and then rough it up with a short bristled brush. There was a step I forgot. Once you stipple that, come back through and give it another coat, and that kind of softens up the rough texture that you put, and blends it a little bit better. I don't know how well you can see that. I can still see where the pin marks were. But if you're just looking for a rough and tumble way of getting that done, not too many people are going to be able to see in there to see that anyhow. However, the pin mark would show up quite blatantly. If you want, of course, to do better than that, either sand the whole thing and give it your own texture with the cement method, or lay down some flocking material, which in my opinion looks the best anyhow. Okay, on to these parts. I'm going to take the tape off. And hopefully these didn't sink down too far. Alright. Okay, so I'm just going to sand. This is this is 320 grit. I'm just going to sand where the see how that's showing a little bit there, where you can kind of see where the divot is a little bit. It's sunken. That shrunk up on us when it was drying. Maybe to me it doesn't shrink as bad, but I think it does. I'm going to have to go to a bigger grit, I think. What's this one? That's 120. Good grief. I need like a 1 something. No, I'm sorry, like a 2 something. I don't have that small grit. Not in these sticks anyhow. So keep it flat. Try to only sand where the putty is. As you can see, I'm outside of the boundaries of that. And once you get down to the point where you don't see any putty anymore, or at least a large, you know, around the area that you're sanding. You can drop down to the next size grit, which in this case is 400. And I'll drop down to 600 too, just because. So that's a sanded flush filled pin mark, and I'll hit that. I'll sand these other ones down, and I'll hit it with primer, and we'll see if I've got to do it again. Okay, it's the next day, and here we have the results of the putty on the fender. As you can see, it's a little bit lighter where the putty was, for whatever reason. It doesn't affect the surface though. Same thing down here. This one up here, however, everything looks fine on it. So that's how I do it. Certainly experiment on your own and figure out how you do it. But that's a good starting point. Good luck with your endeavors, and I will call it a video at this time. Please subscribe if you would like. Hit that bell notification button and you will be alerted when my next video is released. Thanks for watching. Party!